Good morning. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back. It's time already for our next edition of the Weekly Member Spotlight. I'm very excited today to be here with someone who I've not had the pleasure of getting to know just yet, so this interview for me is exciting. I hope it is for you as well. We are here with Ms. Janet Chiarelli from Towne Properties, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I've been practicing. All right. Well, welcome, Janet.
Thank
you very much for agreeing to be here with us today. If I may just ask you to take a moment and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do in the industry.
Sure, happy to. I feel like I'm on the Today Show. This is pretty exciting.
Well, thank you.
I'm Janet Chiarelli. I'm the Vice President of Marketing with Towne Properties. I've been with Towne for a long time. This will be my 36th year coming up next week, actually.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. It's been a great career. I've loved every minute of it. I started out in leasing, and I've been given a lot of opportunities along the way that have been fun and exciting. Mm-hmm. So it's not really been like doing the same job the whole time.
Right.
Although it's been paycheck from the same company.
Right. Well, that's really, I think, a rarity to find someone who's been in the industry for that long and who has been with the same company. That's a tremendous amount of loyalty. And I think it's fascinating that you've started Onsite and ended up in the role of VP of Marketing. Can you tell us a little bit about the progression of your career?
Absolutely. I started out in leasing. I was living at an apartment community in North Dayton called Meadows of Catalpa, and at the time it was the place to live. It had every conceivable amenity, racquetball court, squash court, saunas, and a position came open in the leasing office. And I thought, how hard could it be to sell this place?
Right.
So I applied and I got the job, and as so many people will say who started out in this industry quite by accident, they got bit.
Right.
And it felt so good, and I loved what I was doing.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
What did you think you were going to do in life before you got bit by the property management bug?
I had no idea. I was always changing my mind about things. When I went off to college, I started out as a theater major.
Okay.
And then I switched to biology, and then I switched to art.
Wow.
So I really had so many interests, it was hard for me to pinpoint one thing. So it was really nice to settle into a position that I really enjoyed tremendously. Not particularly lucrative. I mean, I started out making $4.35 an hour. I'm really dating myself here, plus commission. So yeah, $8,000 a year.
What is it about property management that got a hold of you initially?
Every day is different, which is exciting. And I love the interaction with prospects and residents, and feeling that I was really making a difference. You know, when you're in this industry, you're providing people with a basic essential need in housing. Yeah. And when you can help people find the perfect home, it's pretty rewarding.
It is, and your story really speaks to me because the same thing happened. You kind of get into it accidentally, and it just, for me, it gave me this feeling of satisfaction that I was able to make a difference in someone's life.
Yes.
Because what is more important than where you live?
Right.
So that's really exciting. Well, having been in the industry and went from site to corporate level, I still want to hear how that progression happened. So in telling me that, can you also share maybe one of your more memorable stories from being in the business?
Absolutely. So my most memorable story happened in my first position in leasing, and we got a call from a resident who was just very kind of shocked and surprised. She woke up that morning having the day before reported a leak in her bedroom ceiling above her bed. She woke up that morning to find the leak had been repaired and had no idea how that had happened. She was, she was a nurse and she worked nights. So she came home, she went to bed in the morning. When she got up about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the ceiling was repaired.
Oh, wow.
So our service technician walked in and we asked him about it. And he was a dear, sweet man, and he wasn't really service, he was more of a painter, repair guy. And he said, well, I went into the apartment and there she was, asleep in the bed. So he decided to build a scaffolding over her while she slept and repair the ceiling.
And she didn't wake up.
She did not wake up, and we're dying laughing,
Yeah.
but of course we're trying to be very serious about
Right.
you can't really do that.
I thought you were gonna say he had a jetpack or something great. That's unheard of.
Yeah,
That's
it
funny.
was very funny.
I love hearing the property management stories because just when you think you've heard it all, you hear something like that.
Absolutely.
We'll talk a little bit about how you made the leap from on-site and what other positions did you hold on-site into what you do right now?
Sure. So, as I said, I got bitten by the bug
Mhm.
when I was in my position in leasing, and I was very fortunate that the position of assistant manager came available within a year of my starting, and I was able to get that job. And then shortly after that, a manager's position became open. I applied and got that, and that was an interesting property because it was rentals and condos.
Okay.
So I was able to do property management and association management at the same time. Then Towne was offered the opportunity to manage some property for the Federal Savings and Loan Insurance Corporation in Texas, right outside of Dallas and Garland. And so I went down there and managed some property there for 14 months and 6 days and 7 days. It was not my cup of tea, but it was a great learning experience. Came back to Ohio, managed another property in Dayton, and then from there I went to St. Petersburg, Florida, and worked on a lease-up property that we were building near St. Petersburg, where my daughter was born. And then after being down there for 4 years, I had the opportunity to become the district manager in Dayton. So I did that, and then the opportunity to work in the marketing department became available. And so I took that. So I've been very fortunate that a lot of opportunities came along at the right time, and I was always that person who was like, oh, pick me.
Right.
Because I decided right from the beginning that I wanted to stay in this industry as a career. And my first year, I set up a specific timeline for myself. I decided that within 10 years I wanted to be a district manager, and kind of figured out what steps I would need to take to accomplish that goal. And so that's just kind of how it happened.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I really think the perspective for those of us who have had the opportunity to work on site and kind of work your way up through each position on site in the operations field, anyway, it's completely invaluable. And so
Oh, absolutely. It gives you so much more of an appreciation
it does.
of what the folks on site go
Right.
through.
And this industry has evolved so much. I feel like I don't know anymore what it's like to be on site with the new technology and the changing industry and competition and all of that, but still, like, I'll never forget the I think, importance of the interaction with our customer,
For sure.
as well as the gratification of helping someone with, like you said, finding that basic need.
Yeah.
So, well, what advice would you share with people who are up and coming, next generation folks in the industry?
I think to be focused, to try and learn everything possible and never stop learning. And of course, the Apartment Association is a great resource
Absolutely.
for that continuing education. I think another thing is attitude. The attitude that you bring to work changes everything. We've seen situations before where the people on site don't have the right attitude.
Right.
They're there just kind of clocking in, and that changes the whole atmosphere in the community. The entire team gets pulled down by that, and the residents get pulled down by that. We have a specific example where that happened, and so we freed up the future of that person and brought in a new person that was.
It's the most eloquent thing I've ever heard.
I
Freedom, the future. I'm so going to use that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And we put someone in who was vivacious and excited about what she was doing. And that property turned around within months. It was an amazing thing to see. So I think bringing that attitude, leaving all your troubles behind, you know, your coworkers, your residents, don't need to hear or be exposed to that.
Right.
So bringing a positive attitude. And then I think it's also really important to set goals for yourself. Specific goals, measurable goals, if you want to, you know, move up within the company.
I think that's great advice, and in terms of the people, you're absolutely right. And we've heard so many of the leaders in our industry and in this association say that in some form or another, just how important it is that you have people who are in the right seat on the bus and people who have the right attitude about what we do, which is providing people with something that's extremely intimate to them in their home. So I really like that advice. You've been involved with other associations, I read in your survey, and I know you serve on some of our committees at the GCNKA. Can you tell us some of the affiliations that you have with the association and what you do?
Well, I started out having worked in Dayton. I was president of the Dayton Apartment Association for a couple of years. At one time I was also their treasurer. I was in on the original formation of the Rent Foundation, which was pretty exciting. Of course, we've got something comparable here, and I'm still a trustee on the Rent Foundation board up there. I was able to earn my CPM when I was district manager up in Dayton, which was a process.
You made mention about something interesting with you earning that designation.
Oh yeah, I was the first woman at Towne Properties to earn the designation, so I was pretty proud.
Congratulations.
Of that.
That's impressive.
It's a difficult process. A lot of people have equated it to earning a master's degree. There's a lot of coursework.
Right.
I know it's changed over time, but when I did it, each of the sections was 1 week intensive study, followed by a half-day long exam. And the hardest portion of that for me was the financial module.
Right.
Because almost everyone else in the class was already an asset manager, so they knew how to do all of these cash flow summaries and whatnot. And my first day, they may as well have been speaking Japanese. And a group of us got together after class and we decided to form a study group. And because of that, we were all able to get through it, and I actually got a pass superior. In the class, I performed better in that one than all the other modules. So
wow.
I was pretty excited about that too.
Evidence that focus can get you anywhere, right?
Absolutely.
Well, can we get a little bit into you as a human being and talk a little more personal? Well, tell us about your family.
I have one daughter. Her name is McAllen, and yes, she is named after the Scotch for those of you who imbibe. She's 29 years old, and she lives and works in the Williamsburg area of Brooklyn.
Okay.
She's a lovely young woman. I'm very proud of her.
And beautiful. I can't wait to show some photos
She
later
is
today.
a beautiful young woman.
Yes, she is.
And she boxes.
Boxes, wow.
Yes. Yeah, she is a boxer with gloves. She wraps her arms.
Yeah.
And it's pretty impressive. And it's helped her to get in some of the best shape of her life.
Yeah.
Yeah, she looks amazing right now. And it makes her happy. It relieves stress.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
I do like hitting and kicking bags or things when I feel like you need to let that energy out, so I can understand that.
Yeah, and she's fortunate that the gym that she goes to is just a half a block from her apartment.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And then, so my little family, and I'm engaged to Mark Franks.
Congratulations on that.
Yes.
We all know Mark Franks, of course.
Yes, we do.
And because of Mark, I feel like I know you, but this has been interesting to get to know a little more about you personally. You also have 2 little pets. You're going to share some photos of
Maltese. Yes, Bosley and Ollie. They're really, for the most part, good little boys. Bosley is almost 10, and he's a very good boy. I mean, I always think of him as that kid that goes to school with a pocket protector and a bow tie. You know, Ollie is the rascal. He's the kid with the dirty clothes, the spot in his shirt, frog in his pocket. But they get along well. They're really good dogs, and they're a lot of fun.
What do you do in your pastime? Any boxing for you?
No boxing.
No
for
boxing.
me. No. Cooking is probably my favorite pastime.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love to cook, and I especially love cooking for friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
To me, there's nothing that brings me more joy than having a group of people around my table and serving them food that they're going to enjoy. It's just so much fun.
Well, being a great cook, do you enjoy going out to eat?
I love to go out to eat.
Yeah. What is one of your favorite restaurants?
I think my favorite right now is Salazar in OTR. The food there is just so thoughtfully prepared. It's interesting and it's beautiful. Zula is another favorite. Mark and I like to go there for mussels.
Yeah.
Amazing mussels. But just any place that serves good, thoughtfully made food. I prefer not to eat at chain style restaurants.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you give reviews for restaurants when you frequent?
I do. You know, as a marketing person, I appreciate the value of feedback.
Right.
And so I'm that girl who will go on and do ratings and reviews, not only for restaurants, but for items that I purchase. I'm on TripAdvisor. All of that. I enjoy it. And I like to write, so that kind of feeds into
the trifecta.
Yeah.
Good for you. Well, what's one of the last books that you read that was meaningful to you?
A vacation book. It was a book called Less. It actually won a Pulitzer Prize. It's a satirical comedy, and it's about this gay fellow who is freaking out because he's about to turn 50. And so he's kind of trying to escape the inevitable, and he winds up traveling all through Europe, and just the tales of his adventures are very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And he's an author, so reading about his experiences in the literary world and attending literary functions, it was just a lot of fun to read.
Well, you mentioned vacation. This is not something we were going to talk about, but you travel a lot. Do you have any exciting vacations planned for 2019?
Yes.
Yeah.
In a couple of weeks, we are going on the world's largest cruise ship.
Really?
Yes, over 5,000 people.
Wow.
I'm a little nervous about that, but it will be sailing through the Eastern Caribbean. A couple of friends are going on that cruise with us. We're also planning on going to Cozumel. We're going to the Jersey Shore this summer. My brother bought a house down there last year, which is great for the whole family. We're going to Napa Valley.
Okay.
And I'm going to get Mark to Europe for the first time in his life this year. We're going to be taking a Viking River cruise.
Wow.
Rhine
Well, that's
River.
an exciting year to look forward to.
I know. I've already used up all of my vacation days and we're only in the middle of January.
Hey, you made the point earlier that planning is essential, and it sounds like you're a planner with your vacations as well.
Yes.
Setting goals. So this is a random question, but if you were an animal, what would you be and why?
Absolutely a dog.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Of course, I love dogs. It's, the whole unconditional love thing. I have a lot of it, and I would love to share it as if I were a dog.
Right.
And then there's the whole cuteness factor.
Exactly.
Who doesn't want to be adorable?
I like that. So just a couple of more questions, and
Sure.
we'll let you get to your Friday. But what's one of the best concerts that you've attended?
My favorite concert, it wasn't necessarily the best, but my favorite, my cousin's wife was a cellist with the Toledo Symphony. And the Toledo Symphony had the opportunity to play at Carnegie Hall in New York. And we went to see Renee perform, and there was a whole contingent of people that came from Toledo. There were probably 150 people that made the trip.
Oh, wow.
So it was very special and
Just
exciting.
to see her?
Well, to see the entire orchestra. They were all,
okay.
Yeah.
You all went to see the entire orchestra. Got it.
Yeah.
Wow, well that's exciting.
Yeah.
And definitely a unique answer to that question. When I've said concert, we've had all sorts of different answers. So that's interesting in Carnegie Hall. Wow.
I know, it was crazy.
Yeah, really. Okay, so last question for you. How do you think that folks who have worked with you along your career, out town or in the apartment association, would describe you as a professional?
That's a really hard question for me. I can remember at one point when I was president of the Dayton Apartment Association, the executive vice president then said to me, you know, you're just the calmest person. And I was like, seriously? Because I don't
You have a very soothing voice.
feel that way. Well, you know, I am the voice of town properties.
I can
If you
see
call
why.
any of our properties, you'll have, thank you for calling on your voicemail, yeah.
Well, we did speak to a couple of your colleagues, and when we make the post a little bit later this afternoon, we'll share some of their feedback. Thank you, Janet. I could talk to you all morning.
This has been a lot of fun.
Well, this has been fascinating. It's been
And
a
you are
pleasure
so
to get to
good at
know
this.
you all. Thank you so much. I think this, you know, again, to repeat what I've said a few times, it's just so fascinating how many people in our industry that we know. I've always known who you are, of course, and I've looked up to you, and I've seen your name, and I actually was involved in the GDAA very early on in my career. I worked at a property, not for Towne Properties, of course, but a property that Towne built, and it sounds like it was a lot like the property you mentioned in Dayton, and what they build, it's always like the place to be, right? So this was, I worked at Old Town Apartments in Middletown, which had been built in the 60s.
Yes.
And when I worked there in the 90s, it wasn't, you know, what it was back then, but the pictures and the story and the pub that was in there. And so, anyway, getting to know people like you through these kinds of interviews and the posts that we make is fascinating. And I hope it encourages everyone who's watching and a part of the association to just take time and network and get to know the people in this association. I want to say thank you to everyone. Again, I could talk for days about this. Please read our post that we'll make a little bit later this afternoon, and keep tuning in for these weekly member spotlights. Everyone have a great weekend, and if you're around here, stay safe in the snow. Thank you.